The lights inside the America's Got Talent theater were blinding, brighter than anything the boy had ever seen in his small coastal town in the Philippines. Back home, nights were lit by the moon reflecting off the ocean, not by massive spotlights and roaring crowds. His name was Mateo Cruz, a skinny kid with neatly combed hair, wearing a simple suit that felt stiff and unfamiliar against his skin. As he stood backstage, he could hear the muffled cheers of the audience, a sound that made his chest tighten with both excitement and fear. This stage was bigger than his dreams, bigger than the streets he grew up on, bigger than the life he had known just months ago. Mateo's journey to this moment began long before AGT, long before cameras and judges. It began in a small fishing village where mornings started before sunrise and children learned early what responsibility meant. Mateo's father was a fisherman, leaving home before dawn and returning with tired eyes and rough hands. His mother sold vegetables in the local market, her voice strong as she called out prices to passing neighbors. Money was always tight, but music was free. Mateo learned that early, too. Every morning at school, students gathered in the dusty courtyard to sing Lupang Hinirang, the Philippine national anthem. For most kids, it was routine, something to rush through before class. For Mateo, it was sacred. He sang with his whole heart, feeling every word, every note. Teachers noticed. Neighbors noticed. Even strangers passing by would stop when they heard the small boy's voice rising clearly above the others. There was something different about how he sang, something that felt older than his years. At home, there was no television most days, no internet, no fancy sound system. Mateo practiced by singing to the waves, letting the ocean carry his voice. His father would sometimes pause while fixing fishing nets, listening quietly, pretending not to be emotional. His mother would smile, even on days when sales were poor and worries were heavy. Music became Mateo's escape, his comfort, and eventually, his hope. The first twist in Mateo's life came unexpectedly. A local video of him singing Lupang Hinirang during a school ceremony was uploaded online by a teacher using a borrowed phone. No one thought much of it at first. But slowly, the video began to spread. Filipinos from different parts of the world started sharing it, commenting on the purity of his voice and the emotion he carried. Within weeks, the video reached someone connected to an international talent scout. When the call came, Mateo's family thought it was a joke. America's Got Talent felt like a distant dream, something meant for people with money, connections, and confidence. Mateo had none of those. He barely spoke English, had never left the country, and had never performed outside school events. The idea of flying to the United States seemed impossible. Then came the second twist. Mateo's father had an accident at sea. A sudden storm damaged their boat, leaving him injured and unable to work for months. The family faced a difficult decision. They could focus on survival, or they could take a risk that might change everything. With help from relatives, community donations, and strangers who believed in Mateo's voice, they decided to try. The flight to America was Mateo's first time on a plane. He stared out the window, watching the clouds, feeling like he was floating between two worlds. One was the life he knew, full of struggle and simplicity. The other was unknown, full of possibility and fear. His mother held his hand tightly the entire way, whispering prayers under her breath. When Mateo arrived in Los Angeles, everything felt overwhelming. The noise, the size of the buildings, the diversity of people, all of it made him feel very small. During rehearsals, he watched other contestants sing pop songs, perform magic tricks, dance with confidence. Doubt began creeping in. Would an anthem in a foreign language mean anything to an American audience? Would the judges even understand what he was singing? Producers suggested he choose a popular English song. It would be safer, they said. It would connect more easily with viewers. Mateo listened politely, then shook his head. Lupang Hinirang was not just a song to him. It was his story, his people, his family, and his country. If he was going to sing on this stage, it had to be that. On audition day, as Mateo walked onto the stage, the judges smiled kindly but curiously. Simon Cowell leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. Howie Mandel nodded encouragingly. Sofia Vergara smiled warmly. The crowd applauded, but there was also a sense of uncertainty. This was a young boy from another country, about to sing something most of them had never heard. When asked his name and where he was from, Mateo answered softly but clearly. When asked what he would be singing, he took a deep breath and said the title of his country's national anthem. There was a pause. Some audience members exchanged looks. Simon raised an eyebrow slightly. The music began, simple and solemn. Mateo closed his eyes for just a second. Then he sang. From the first note, the room changed. His voice was not loud, but it was steady, pure, and full of emotion. Even without understanding the words, the audience could feel the weight of them. It was pride, longing, love, and resilience all woven into sound. Mateo sang as if he were standing in his school courtyard again, but also as if he were singing to the entire world. Halfway through the song, the camera cut to the judges. Howie's eyes were wide. Sophia's smile had softened into something more emotional. And Simon Cowell, known for his tough critiques and emotional distance, was leaning forward now, his face serious, his eyes glistening under the lights. The biggest twist came in the final verse. Mateo's voice trembled slightly, not from weakness, but from feeling. The memories of his father's injury, his mother's sacrifices, his village, and his homeland all poured into that moment. A tear slipped down his cheek, but he didn't stop. He finished strong, holding the final note with quiet dignity. When the music ended, there was silence. A heavy, powerful silence that lasted just long enough to feel eternal. Then the theater erupted. The audience stood, clapping, cheering, some wiping away tears. Mateo stood frozen, unsure of what to do, his heart pounding. Simon was the last to speak. He cleared his throat, something rarely seen. He admitted he hadn't expected much when Mateo said he would sing an anthem in another language. But he said something incredible had happened. He said that sometimes, you don't need to understand the words to understand the emotion. He talked about how music can cross borders, cultures, and languages. And then, in a moment that shocked everyone, Simon's voice cracked. He admitted he was emotional. Mateo could hardly believe what he was hearing. A judge known for crushing dreams was praising him, feeling something because of him. When the votes came, it was unanimous. 4 yeses. Mateo was going to the next round. Backstage, Mateo cried in his mother's arms. But the journey didn't get easier. Online reactions were mixed. Many praised him, but some critics questioned whether singing a national anthem belonged on a talent show. Others accused the show of using emotion for ratings. Mateo saw none of this directly, but he felt the pressure. In the next rounds, Mateo faced new challenges. He struggled with homesickness, language barriers, and self-doubt. At one point, he almost quit. He missed his father, who was still recovering back home. He missed the ocean, the simple life, and the comfort of anonymity. Then came another twist. Mateo received a video message from his village. The entire community had gathered to watch his audition on a shared screen. Children, elders, fishermen, and vendors all cheered for him. His father, still injured but smiling, told him how proud he was. That message reignited Mateo's strength. For his next performance, Mateo chose a different song, but he carried the same heart. Each time he sang, he remembered why he started. Not for fame, not for money, but to honor his roots and share his voice. Although Mateo did not ultimately win the entire competition, his impact was undeniable. His performances went viral. Invitations came from different countries. More importantly, opportunities arose to help his family and community. Donations helped repair fishing boats. Scholarships were offered. Mateo's life changed forever. But perhaps the most powerful moment came months later. Mateo returned to his village, standing once again in the school courtyard. As the anthem played, he sang with the same emotion as before, but now surrounded by people who believed even more deeply in dreams. His story reminded the world that greatness can come from the smallest places. That a child's voice can cross oceans. And that even someone as tough as Simon Cowell can be moved when truth and talent meet.